Hello and welcome to Maxim Foods Inside Track. We just started into autumn here in Brisbane. It was a very chilly 18 degrees Celsius or 65 Fahrenheit for our American friends. Yes, which is very cold in Brisbane standards. Got Easter coming up. I hope everyone's well prepared for the holiday season. It will be great to have a little break before we get into the rest of autumn. Let's have a look at dairy. Having a look at whole milk powder, so very bearish across the board with whole milk powder. Futures markets did predict that there would be a slight decrease last night, and we did see a decrease of 5% on the auction. North Asian or Chinese buyers were involved and took the portion of the product on offer. The decrease probably resulted more to the fact that surrounding markets, Southeast Asia, Middle East, etc., didn't show up, so there wasn't that level of competition to drive pricing up. So with healthy supply in New Zealand of whole milk powder and good milk, well, reasonably good milk numbers, we do see a healthy supply and waning demand, hence we see a drifting off in pricing. Moving across to skim milk powder, if we can have a look globally, the US supply of skim is reasonably good, so we're seeing some reasonably flat or pricing on the CME for non-fat. In EU we've seen a decline in pricing, so there is a good supply of skim from EU manufacturers. Seen about 5% decline over the last month on month, and then in Australia and New Zealand, production has been healthy on the back of an AMF skim mix from our processors. So supply is reasonably good. Demand is holding up better than expectations. Price has drifted off over the last 2 to 3 months, anywhere between sort of 2,700 and 3,100 US on the GDT. So outlook for that, we don't see anything too exciting happening on skim, but we'll probably see a reasonably flat outlook for the next 3 to 6 months. Having a look at butterfat, on a global view, the US seems relatively balanced. Domestic and Central South American export demand still quite high, so pricing remaining relatively flat. In the EU, we've seen a drift off in pricing as they're coming into their milk season. Supply has been pretty good, and the demand domestically in the EU, retail demand, etc., has drifted off a bit. So we're seeing pricing drift off in the last sort of 2 to 3 weeks. In New Zealand, we saw the result last night on the GDT on AMF. We've seen a 7% decrease in that. It was an interesting auction. The short term, there was very low demand for AMF, but in contracts 4 and 5, we saw it pick up and actually be plus 1% on contract 5. So longer term demand seems to be there for AMF, for butterfat, for butter, 82%. We've seen a bit of a drift off as well, sitting at around 5-year averages for both butter and AMF. So it could be argued reasonably good value to be buying at present. Having a look at whey and lactose, so bearish sentiment around whey and lactose at present. We obviously see some heavy cheese production in the US, so milk is up around 1% in the US, so obviously more cheese and whey made. So that coupled with soft demand from China on the feed market and globally, we see a bit of an imbalance there, so pricing drifting off on whey and lactose. On the protein side of things, we see WPI still healthy in demand. WPC has come back a little, but things are stabilising on the protein side. Finishing off with cheese. So in the US, pricing against expectations, it was expected the CME to drift off in cheese pricing there, but it's held quite well. Which means good domestic demand and reasonable export demand for US cheese. In the EU, much like the butter, a lot of retail pressure, macroeconomic pressure on cheese over there. So cheese demand has waned and production increased. So we've seen pricing continue to drift off on EU cheese. Over in Australia and New Zealand, Australian cheese still in good demand. Our food service market still thriving at the moment. So cheese pricing's held up quite well. In New Zealand, the same. Still, I guess it's the champion of the dairy commodities at the moment. So cheese pricing relatively stable and looking quite healthy. All in all, yeah, still bearish sentiment out there. Production globally is up, although New Zealand, Australia obviously tailing off into the winter months, so we will see less product in Australia and New Zealand. In the EU, the US, things are moving along well with supply. So macroeconomic pressures globally with Southeast Asian markets, Middle Eastern markets a bit quiet at the moment. So we do see a bit of an imbalance and hence the bearish sentiment. Have a wonderful Easter. If you're driving anywhere, be safe on the roads, look after one another. I hope everyone gets to spend time with family and friends, and we'll see you again in a fortnight.